Trilogy intro, The Inner Road. This is the first part of three. 3 films, 1 journey, the effort, the doubt, the why. You do not need to have watched anything before this. You do not need to know where it is going. You only need to recognize something in what comes next. That is enough to begin. Opener. The effort. This is not a guide, not a coaching session, not a framework for getting more out of yourself. This is about something most people carry without a name for it. The feeling that no matter how much you give, no matter how many mornings you get up and try again, something in the distance never quite closes. You know that feeling. You have known it for a while. Part 1. The feeling. There is a version of effort that looks like success from the outside. You get up. You show up. You deliver. You hold back the complaints. Because complaining feels like a door you cannot afford to open. And you have kept that door closed for a long time. But at the end of the day, when the noise stops, something quietly asks a question you have been avoiding. Did any of that actually move anything? And you already know the answer. You have known it for months, maybe longer. You just kept going anyway, because stopping felt more dangerous than exhaustion. Most people think exhaustion looks like lying down. It looks like showing up again tomorrow. It looks like answering the message, finishing the task, holding the smile. It looks exactly like someone who is fine. That is the cruelest part of this kind of tired. It is invisible even to the people closest to you. Sometimes even to yourself. You have been running so long that running started to feel like standing still. There is a shift that happens quietly. Over time, you stop asking whether this is working. You start asking whether you can keep it up. The goal changes without you noticing. Progress becomes survival. Ambition becomes maintenance. And you tell yourself that is temporary. That next month, next year, something will open up. But the months pass, and the feeling stays. Part 2. You have known. This maybe it was a job. You gave it everything you had. You learned what they wanted. You adapted. You delivered more than was asked. You believed that if you just kept going, kept improving, kept showing up, eventually something would shift. It stayed exactly where it was. The recognition found other people. next level stayed closed, and after a while, you adjusted your expectations downward and called it maturity. Maybe it was a person. You showed up for them in ways they rarely showed up for you. You adjusted. You tried. You reshaped parts of yourself that probably did not need reshaping. You told yourself that love requires effort, that if you just gave a little more, things would even out. The dynamic stayed the same no matter how much you put in, and you carried that quietly because questioning it felt like giving up, and giving up felt like failing at something that mattered. Maybe it was all of it: the job, the relationship, the responsibilities, the version of yourself you were expected to maintain. From the outside, it looked like a life that was working. From the inside, it felt like a performance with no intermission. And you kept performing because you had forgotten there was another option. Or maybe you never knew there was one. Part 3. Where it comes from. There is a name for what happens when effort and outcome stop being connected. A description rather than a diagnosis. When someone experiences over and over that what they do does not change what happens, something in them quietly stops investing out of something much more honest than defeat. The mind learns from what it is shown, and what it was shown for too long was that the connection between giving and receiving had quietly been severed. That is a learned response to a dishonest system. Some roads are built with certain people in mind, and for everyone else, the same effort simply costs more. That is an uncomfortable truth, but it is an honest one. The effort you put in was real. The belief you brought was real. The road just asked more of you than it had any right to, and it never told you that up front. Somewhere early on, you learned the equation. Try hard enough, and things will work out. Show up enough, and it will be noticed. Give enough, and eventually you will receive. It sounded like truth. It felt like truth. But nobody told you what to do with the silence when the effort is there and the arrival is elsewhere. Nobody gave you a name for the feeling of running a race where the finish line keeps moving. So you did the only thing you knew how to do. You ran faster. Part 4. Why it stays. There is a voice that makes stopping feel impossible. It is quiet. It does not need to be loud. It just says, if you stop now, everything you gave will have meant nothing. If you stop now, you will have to face what you already know. And facing that feels heavier than the exhaustion of continuing. So you continue, because the alternative requires a kind of honesty you are not sure you are ready for yet. At some point, the effort stopped being about the goal. It became evidence. Evidence that you had stayed in the fight. Evidence that you were still showing up. Evidence that whatever was wrong lived somewhere outside of you. Because look at how much you were still giving. Movement became its own justification. As long as you were doing something, you could hold off the question of whether any of it was working. This kind of exhaustion does not announce itself. It arrives as a Tuesday morning where everything is fine and something in you is so tired it has stopped knowing what rest feels like. You are still functioning, still showing up, still delivering. But underneath the functioning, something has gone very quiet, worn to a thinness that you are the only one who can feel. And the hardest part is that from the outside, nothing looks different, which means no one thinks to ask, which means you carry it alone, which is exactly where it has always lived. Part 5. What remains? There is something that needs to be said clearly. The distance you never closed was a measure of what the road asked of you versus what it was ever willing to give back. There is a difference between someone who did not try hard enough and someone who tried on the wrong terms, in the wrong conditions, carrying weight that was never fairly theirs. You were the second one. You have always been the second one. You were someone who cared deeply, who kept giving after the return had long stopped coming, who kept running after the road had stopped going anywhere, who kept believing in a system that had quietly stopped honoring that belief. That is what it looks like to be fully human in a world that rarely admits how uneven the ground actually is. I do not know how long you have been carrying this. I do not know what it has cost you. I do not know what you left behind just to keep going. But you are still here. And that is something real. Something that belongs entirely to you. You kept going on a road that gave you very little back. And somewhere in that running, something in you has started to ask a question you have not yet found the words for. That question is the first honest thing you have allowed yourself to feel in a long time. Reflection. What this was. You did not fail the road. The road was never built for someone who gives the way you give. That is not a weakness. That is the most human thing about you. The effort was never wasted. It shaped something in you that no system and no dynamic could ever take back. You carried it. You are still here. And somewhere in the carrying, something in you stayed intact that was never supposed to survive this long. That is yours. It always was. Closing. If you have ever kept going without knowing if it was working, write one word below. Not for me. For the person scrolling after you who has felt the same thing and never said it out loud. The next part of this journey is called the doubt. It begins where this one ends, with the question you have not yet found the words for.
You kept going, morning after morning, certain that eventually something would move, something would open, something would answer the effort. You showed up, you carried it. You became reliable to everyone, including the parts of you that were already tired. There is a kind of tiredness that comes from giving everything and arriving nowhere. You kept running, and somehow the distance stayed the same. At first you called it ambition and discipline and responsibility, until one day you realized you were no longer moving forward. You were maintaining survival. You adjusted, you improved, you gave more, as if effort itself could force the road to finally open. But it didn't. There is a kind of tiredness that comes from carrying hope. Long after the return disappeared, you kept running, because stopping felt heavier than continuing. Some roads ask more from certain people than they were ever built to return, and no one tells you until years have already passed inside the trying. From the outside, everything still worked. You still answered, still smiled, still delivered. But somewhere underneath, something had gone quiet. You did not fail the road. The road asked more of you, and it was willing to give back. And still something in you kept going. Something honest, something real, something that survived the distance.